Hello, FewCandy here, and welcome back to Solitude. And last time out, we built this favela-inspired low-income housing area to boost our population quite substantially, actually, but also provide that very obvious income divide that we want to get the effect of within Solitude. And I think that kind of came off with that. But today we're going to move away actually from South American inspired builds to put in some rice fields inspired by places like Vietnam and Japan even. Because I really want to bring in aspects from tropical areas across the globe, lots of different continents into this build. So I feel like rice fields would sit in really nicely with the landscape that we've got here. So it's going to be a challenging build, lots of detail and network heavy, much less of the infrastructure today, but hopefully it will give us a really nice little backdrop into that valley area behind Serenity. So we're going to be building up our rice fields in this area as mentioned behind the farm here, really trying to fill this out. We need to expand some of the residential, I think, over this side. I don't know if that'll come in today's episode or a later one, so we may come onto that, but this, we really want to pack this out with lots of rice fields and a couple of little, very small, actually probably 1x1 housing within it as well. But just thinking about networks and future planning, we've obviously got our highway coming in through here, and to get round to any of the towns that are going to sit in these little valleys here, at the moment they have to come in off the highway, off this connection here, and take the sort of fast route around the coast round this way. Now I'm thinking if we start to put in a road here, we could have one that sort of loops up over the backs of the mountains, because there'll be a slightly larger town in this valley over here. So I'm thinking probably adding in another connection across the back of the mountains would be quite beneficial to that. And we want to make sure it's a decent road, because yeah, we may start getting quite a bit of traffic coming through that way rather than along our fast coastal road. I don't know if we'll connect this up, but I want to make sure we've got the option to do that if we so wish, just to help out that traffic, because we don't want the coastal road becoming completely clogged up. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. Now, I do want pedestrians able to move across this road, so I think what I am going to use is just the basic vanilla road for the moment. We may upgrade it at a later date, but this will do for a starting point. And let's, as always, because of our terrain here, turn on terrain lines in order to put this in. And we're just going to come in and kind of roughly follow some of these terrain lines around. Now I want it to weave around a little bit so we can get some nice interesting rice field designs in around it. We want it to come across here, and then I do want it actually to bridge over this section of the railway. So we'll need to make sure that we're getting high enough up over here. So yeah, if we just go down to ground level, we can see where that's flat, and that's probably not too bad there. And then we'll continue this on over again, trying to keep those heights as flat as possible. We can obviously use move it to correct that in a second, but that should be okay for now. And then what I'm going to do is actually loop it down this section here to come and join up with our road over this side. So let's form a nice smooth curve connection in for this. So like that, of course. We've just started, and I've obviously definitely left tree anarchy on. So let's go ahead and clear those out. And realistically, this probably isn't the right road type for this, but it will do for the moment. And now we've connected that into that side there, so they've got a connection right round here to get on to easy access to the highway this side. Then we'll just continue this road on up this way. So let's go back and turn our terrain lines on for this, and I will actually remember to turn off tree anarchy. And I want this to kind of gradually loop up this mountainside here. So we're going to make sure we are going up in the terrain heights, but also following the terrain that is in existence here already. Now we probably at this point want a little bit of a switch back up here. We can start to more gradually curve it up the mountainside. Yeah, this is the kind of thing that I'm envisaging. This could obviously continue and go over the hill this side if we want it to. It needs a lot of work. So let's go ahead and grab a network multi-tool, and we'll use the slope function for this. And we're just going to try and slightly more gently slope some of these options off here. I don't mind bits of steepness, but what I don't want is humps like this. Like that's too much. So you can see as well when we use network multi-tool the difference in the elevations here, which is, yeah, not right. So we just want to gently smooth that out so it gives us a much nicer connection. Similarly here, I think we've got a little bit of a hump issue going on there. So let's just gradually smooth that out. And you can see actually these are really not too steep. We've got points where it gets steeper, but it's not too bad. We could actually get even steeper than that, I think, realistically. But yeah, that will form our main road connection that's going to flow through our rice fields here. So coming onto the rice fields, and the first thing I'm absolutely going to do is clear out all of the trees from this space. I'll leave a couple up next to the highway there. I'm fine with that. We're going to remove them all from the area that we're going to be putting in our rice fields, and we'll put some back around as decoration in little areas around it. Because looking on Google Earth, there's some really incredible images of rice fields. Like they look like art, honestly. I don't know how people carve these into the mountainsides. It really is quite incredible. I was lucky enough to see some when I visited Japan, but I'd absolutely love to go to Vietnam to see some of these. It's really beautiful stuff. So we're going to be looking at putting some pretty interesting patterns into it, because the landscape here is kind of not as interesting as a lot of the places that I've seen with rice fields. We have a lot of flat rice fields as well, and I was looking around on Google Earth too, so that's not uncommon. But we're going to want to try and make it, I think, a little bit more visually interesting by doing some cool patterns with it. So I've got these rice field networks from Ronix from the workshop, which are in the asset list linked in the description below, so you can go and check those out. They come with like different irrigation canals, roads, pathways, etc. all with them. We've also got some prop rice fields as well, which we may integrate somewhere along the line. And I've also got these really cool grass embankments that we may use where we need a little bit of a steeper gap between our rice fields. I think the key element with this is we really need to make sure that they are flat. And we're going to be using a lot of network multi-tool as well to copy our patterns. But what we definitely want to do is try and use the landscape where we can to our advantage here. So I'm going to start by just very simply drawing in one section of rice field like this. So you can see the network here. Now, yeah, the one trouble, which I haven't addressed yet, is our grass sprites, which I absolutely love in Solitude. I do not want to turn them off. Of course you can with hide it if you so wanted to, but I don't want to do that. So what we're actually going to do is we're going to go into our extra landscaping tools, and we're going to basically paint this whole thing in as fertile land. So for that I'll need to remove lot forestry, and actually because I've removed all of the trees from here now, what we're going to do is just mass zone in a load of trees like this on the area where we've got that forestry area dictated into the map, the forestry resource. We're going to get rid of all of that. Then we're going to come into extra landscaping tools, and we're going to paint this whole thing in as fertile land. I'm thinking that's probably cliff, which is why it isn't showing there. But yeah, we want this whole thing because I do not want the grass sprites on realistically any of this. So that should give us a good starting point. So now you can see this network asset here as well. No more grass sprites on it, so we can see the rice nice and clearly through it. So I've probably gone a little bit long actually for what I want to do here, so we'll leave it like that. I'm going to draw it up relatively close to this highway here. And then of course the main thing that we do want to do, like I said, is check that this is completely flat. So we're going to select all the nodes with Move It, Control H, select one of the nodes that we want to flatten to. And yeah, that will work nicely. And actually what we could do here as well, just for a bit of interest up next to the highway, is continue this on just a tiny bit. And then hopefully once we level off this node at the end here, yeah, we'll actually be able to see that from the highway, which I think will be pretty cool indeed. So we have in our rice fields pack got this rice field footpath small. And if we go to parallel rows function network multi-tool, we're just going to put that in. We're going to hit tab to change the size. And I'm just going to adjust it up with the minus sign, just so it is right next to this rice field. Click enter to place it in. And then when we click away, you can see that that little, very small little footpath is now in. You can see it kind of goes underneath the terrain there, which is exactly what we want for this. So now I'm going to go back to network multi-tool. We're going to select this again. But now with our rice field network. And what you can do actually is adjust the height. So I'm going to go down 2 meters with this, and we may want to adjust the distance here. So we're going to see what this looks like for starters. So yeah, there we go. That's good. So now you can see, we're going to ignore the ends for the moment because we'll tidy those up with some detailing and extra networks. What we start to get is this layered rice field effect like this. So this is what we're going to want to keep repeating all the way down this field. And we can make it a little bit interesting. And we can make it a little bit interesting by varying up the widths of these networks as well. So again, we'll just draw this in closer, we'll hit enter, so that's the same height as this network now. I've only done it part way along, as you will see, and we've got a slightly different network here that we can use. So I'm going to come back into Network Multi-Tool, the parallel rows function. We'll get this one in now. Again, we're going to sync it 2 meters like this, and then I'm actually going to make it a little bit closer. So this is going to be a slightly thinner layer. So we'll make it 11 like that. And then you can see this kind of sits in at a different width, which is going to give us some interest to it as well. Now, again, I'm going to go again, exactly the same thing. So yeah, you'll see this is a lot of repeated networks to get this in, but I think the end effects will be very much worth it, I hope at least. So I'll get that into the side like that there. Go back to our networks, hit tab, we're going to change that. This one we're going to drop down again 2 meters. Now we can't really go any further than that with the footpath because it hits the bottom of it and it will start floating in midair and looks a little bit strange. This is why I've got these grass embankments as well, because they do actually extend a little bit further down than these footpaths that we're using here. But yeah, if we put this one in like this, then what we can do is then use node controller to stretch out some of the nodes. So we can make it slightly wider here, like this, which sort of stretches out the pattern. Now you can see where we've got little gaps in it, we can actually fill those in with some of the decals which come with these rice field pack as well. So we've got like this water detail here. So we can add this in along the edge. So we get, oh, hello. So we get that nice shiny water element all the way through it. So we're not like losing those prop elements. And then on top of the water, we've got these rice field elements as well that we can start to add in on top of this. And then that just extends out the pattern so that it looks like nice and natural, and we haven't got like, yeah, just this sort of obvious where we've used node controller to extend it out and it looks a little bit strange. So yeah, we can use these to fill in these areas, and there's slightly different rice types as well which come with it, so you can experiment with different types of those, but we can use that there. And then with something like this, we're going to probably need to manually draw in our grass banking around it. But you can see, like, we're creating a horrendous kind of mess in the terrain. So for me, I'd say that that kind of area is probably done there now. So we want to come in with some more networks at a slightly different height. Maybe one curves around like this. Now that's a little bit close, obviously for my liking. So let's move this out a touch, and we can do some detail on the banking around it. Again, that's probably, we want to slope that down a little bit more gently. So again, with landscaping tools, there's going to be a lot of this. We can come in and we can use things like the slope function just to kind of even that out a little bit. Definitely smooth here as well. Smooth out some of those cliffs in between. But we'll obviously come in with detailing around that to help it sit in a little bit better. But this is the sort of thing that we're going to be doing all over these cliffs here. This bit is in particular very steep, so I may redo this to have larger drop downs between the rice fields and using that grass network instead of these paths. But yeah, it's going to be a lot of that in some interesting patterns, interesting shapes to get some really nice designs for rice fields in here. So most of this I will do in a time lapse, and then we'll be right back to talk about all of the detailing and the extra things that we can put in around these. So they're in. That was probably one of the most tedious builds I've ever done. But I don't know, I think it's worth it. Like, if we kind of look at the long shots out here, there's a little bit of glitching in some of the decals, obviously, as we get further away. But I think it's looking pretty good. We've got some nice designs in here, making use of the landscape. I did decide to remove the terrible area that I originally started on showing you how to do this, because it was just way too steep for the assets that we've got here. Like, the retaining walls just didn't work. It was, yeah, it didn't work. We'll say that. Yeah, I think we've got some nice little designs here, little pops in extra kind of width on certain bits, a little bit of wobble here and there, so it looks a slightly more natural. Lots of different layers. And then I brought in this road as well, which is kind of raised on a grass bank, which comes with the assets as well. And this is kind of running through it. So that's the next bit that I want to come on to, is creating some little pockets of residential, very small residential houses, but also a little bit of industrial here and there, little warehouses, processing facilities, very small ones, like localised for some of these areas. Because, yeah, I like how these roads kind of sit within it, a little bit random. So we've got like one going up the back here, that's more of an access route. We won't be putting buildings along that. We've got something up here that we can do a little bit of building on, some extra spaces, just a few little extra spaces to fill. And yeah, just quickly, in terms of the ends, I did use more of the grass paths to kind of block off the ends and smooth them out, and then cover up a lot of the junky terrain with some clusters of trees, which actually I really quite like. Yeah, I think that kind of adds to it, having the little clusters of trees around it, and very much like places that I saw on Google Earth as well. So yeah, let's talk about what we are going to be putting in these areas. And to start off with, I would like to use a little bit of Ivanya's Industrial Evolution assets. Like, some of the 1x1 and the 1x2 little warehouse assets are incredibly cute, the level 2 ones we're looking at here. And I think they'd sit in quite nicely. I'm not so keen on the chimney aspect of it though, so I'm wondering if we can get, yeah, more kind of square ones like that without the chimneys. We could even potentially extend it to some level 3s. They look maybe a little bit fancy for what I want to go for here, so I think we'll probably avoid those, and maybe some larger kind of warehouse style buildings would be appropriate. Yeah, like this one doesn't have any of the chimneys on it, so I don't mind that. It does have rapid motors on it. Perhaps we can use Bob to remove that, which we can. So let's go ahead and just get rid of that little logo. Don't really want that sitting in our rice fields. But yeah, I do think some little localised pockets of industrial like this would look nice. So this is all going to be about kind of orientation for this. And I would add as well, cars can drive along these roads, so you will expect to see cars passing down these. And I think for this, we'll upgrade this section of roads to our kind of plain asphalty one, potentially even plain concrete actually. I'm going to go better with the warehouse yards that we've got in here. And let's use network skins on this again to get rid of those street lights. And just yeah, we don't want those down here. So it's going to be a little bit tough working with some of the terrain here, but we can just make sure we've got a couple of areas that are nice and level in height. And we can also mix in some of our workshop asset, like these little tiny sheds. Absolutely love these. Potentially even use some of the generic vanilla industry, like these ones. Don't think that would look too strange out here. Again, I am going to bob off that sign though, the Williams logo. Let's get rid of that one there, just so we don't have that on the side. But yeah, we'll come in with a bit of surface painter and lots of prop detailing to bring this all together. Come the detailing time lapse in just a second. I'm worried that this building now actually is a bit too large for what I want here, so I may get rid of that. Let's actually change that to some of our workshop assets that we've got here. Yeah, these little tiny sheds, I definitely think that's kind of more appropriate for what we want. for this area. And we can arrange them into a bit of a higgledy-piggledy space, I think. Like a little bit random, like kind of different sheds have popped up over time. I don't want it looking too uniform out here, so we'll bring that one back a little bit. We'll create a little yard here. And yeah, we could probably leave these two sheds on the edge here. And of course, we'll come in with some surface painter and prop detailing to finish that all off. And then I also do want to have small pockets of residential. So we're going to use our muddy road for this, and I'm just going to bring this on down the slope here into a bit of a cul-de-sac. I think what we can do is join it up by a footbridge out to here. Yeah, why not? Let's join it onto this road here so they've got another point of access up to those industrial buildings, and that will kind of hopefully minimise the amount of trucks that are actually driving backwards and forwards through our rice fields as well. In terms of the residential, what I would like to do is look at one-by-one assets and see what we have in here. So there are some of the vanilla ones that I think are completely appropriate for this, and in particular, actually, European suburbia, which seems like an odd choice, but I just really want some very small, kind of wooden-looking housing for this area. I don't want anything too fancy or anything too big. So I think that these work quite well. Maybe not this one with the sort of slightly more fancy porch. Yeah, definitely this one, this base game vanilla asset here. We can create kind of a very small little community out of these. So let's go ahead and place a few of these down, and then we'll arrange them nicely. And I don't really want them aligned up to the road. I kind of want to use a bit of surface painter here to, yeah, fill out the area with a little bit of ruined texture probably. And create it so that it's kind of houses have popped up in different locations to fill out this area. So yeah, we can have some houses sort of behind like that as well. I'm not opposed to that. And just generally mix them all up into a really small, very nice little community here. I think we'll add in another one of those vanilla base game buildings here. I've got a fancy satellite dish on their roof there. Practical luxury for out in this part of Solitude. Yeah, that's the kind of thing that I want. And then in terms of detailing, yeah, if we get our ruined texture here, we can bring this out around the houses. And we probably don't want to like fill out too much. I want little spaces of grass. I don't mind that it's a bit cracked a little bit. And we can start to create a kind of almost little commune style area. I have got things like a little bit of overgrown grass. I think bringing that in amongst the houses would look pretty appropriate for this. So we'll definitely do some of that. That's maybe covering this one up a little bit too much. Try and reorganise that. Yeah, a little bit of grass around the houses to make it feel a little bit more natural and overgrown and sort of unplanned, I think is really what I'd want to go for here. It's just a little commune that has popped up of rice field workers, somewhere for them to live close to the rice fields. And then we can add decals on top of this to kind of dry it out and yeah, give it a slightly more rough, worn down feel. So actually adding some of this decal grass over the top as well, a slightly more ruined one, changes up the landscape a little bit, just to give it a bit of variation. But yeah, that's how I'd really like to do this area. So yeah, I think something like that will do, and we'll bring those in various different places around the complex here. So like definitely this little area, we'll just have a couple of very small houses here. Could even be as few as 1 or 2 realistically. So yeah, I think like just having just those 2 houses here, again with a bit of detailing around it, will be plenty. So if we take a look at the wider shot here, we've got little pockets of industry, so this space I'm thinking in particular for industry at the top of the hill as well. And a couple of little pockets of housing here or there. It's really going to help to bring our rice fields alive and bring this very rural community alive within Solitude. So that's the general plan, and of course we'll bring in more of the rural forestry around these complexes too, like really pack them into the rainforest style area. So they'll almost barely be visible actually in amongst the rice fields, but just noted that they are there. And that way as well, we'll have people walking backwards and forwards and moving across these roads through the rice fields too, which will give a bit more activity and a bit more life to the area. So I'll go ahead into a time lapse and just finish this off now. So yeah, there we go. We have our rice fields in, and I really like how these neighbourhoods have come together actually, with the little plastic chairs, the odd motorcycle prop as well, which I've now got in the game, washing lines. All the kind of floor, I think, and the decals and the surface painter really make these. Same goes for the little pops of industry as well. I've kind of tried to keep the prop detailing down a little bit, just lots of random things all over the place. I want it to feel a little chaotic. So I've got like wheelbarrows, a few boxes, old containers, some crates, pallets, that sort of thing. And then really in the rest of it, yeah, I've just come around and tidied up the spare areas with little bits of overgrowth and trees. A couple of houses in there again with a few props, a little bit more industry as we go on up the hill as well. This one just open to the road up here. And then finally right at the top we've got another little housing commune style area. Again, the dirt decals really do just make this. And again, a little industry one. Decided to go for dirt actually, for gravel surface here. Make it feel a little bit different at the top of the hill. Yeah, I think the effect we get is really nice. I just wish the decals would stay kind of visible for longer. But yeah, I'm really liking actually how this sits into Solitude. If we look at the wider shot, it's yeah, I think it goes well with the farm and the rural aspects of it. So we do need to bring in some more residential just around it, some more kind of dirt road residential. I'm thinking more like our starter town that we did over here. Lots of rainforest surrounding it. Maybe the start of some nature reserve parks that can go up into the mountains or other special builds. I'd love to hear your ideas for that in the comments, so please do let me know. But for today, that is going to be it. So if you have enjoyed the episode, likes, comments and shares are greatly appreciated. And don't forget as well to check out my instant gaming link in the description below for really great discounts on hundreds and hundreds of games. But that's all from me for now, so thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll catch you again next time. Bye bye!